Sup peeps, Voxel Vagrant here, and I'm going to show you a couple of quick tips for Blender, namely moving objects, coloring them, duplicating them, and just some really simple navigation basics. So I am currently orbiting around my object by just middle mouse click and drag. So middle mouse click, draggy, drag, 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 lets me orbit around the object. And if I hold down Shift, while I middle mouse drag, I can pan the objects left and right and up and down, pan, pan, pan. And if I middle mouse squeal, scroll, scroll plus wheel equals squeal, scroll, that lets me zoom in and out. So that lets me orbit, navigate my scene. So to select objects, so if I select that cube, I'm just left clicking on it, and that selects it. You can tell because I've got this orange outline. I can also select it in the outliner. Well, it's called an outliner in Maya, but it's a scene collection in Blender, which is the upper right-hand corner of the UI. And you'll see that I've also got a camera, which is this funny looking square and triangle dude, and a light in my scene. And at the moment, we're just going to pay attention to this cube. Okay, so how to actually get this cube to do things and move them around. I've got some transform tools, which are used for transforming. So that's, you can your transform options are move, scale, and rotate. So the first one on the left-hand side of your UI, I've got this little toolbox. The arrows is my move tool. So green is moving just in the Y-axis. Red is moving just in the X-axis, and blue is moving just in the Z-axis. What I'm doing is I'm left-clicking and dragging on each of these arrows. And when I left-click and drag on one, you'll see there's this like line shows up for a few seconds. That's just saying, by the way, hey, you're dragging on just the X-axis and it will go either forward or backward along this line. And when I let go of the left click and I stop dragging, it goes away. Control Z undoes whatever it is you don't want to do and sends it back to where you were before you started doing a bunch of strange stuff. The other way to move things is if you hit G for grab, it basically grabs the object, and it's currently just, I'm not touching anything right now. It's just attached to my mouse until I left click again, and then it drops. So if I hit G, it grabs it again, left click to drop it. And this lets you just sort of grab it and move it around in space. And if you can see, I'll just move my camera. It just sort of moves it freely in strange places. Not quite sure what I clicked to make that. Ooh, I clicked something to make that snap to a grid, but I'm not entirely sure what. Curious. I can't wait to find out. Oh, I think it's because I had grab selected and I clicked on one of the grid lines. I can't replicate it. Whatever it is I did, it was cool. Things for me to learn as I'm getting to know Blender. So I'm coming from Maya and I'm doing these little videos as I learn how to use Blender stuff. So that was moving. That was the little arrows icon on the left, and either dragging on the axes or hitting G and letting that move chaotically around your scene. Rotating is the next one down in the UI. It's the little curved arrows. And if I could drag on any one of these axes, it rotates that object. And if I drag on the white circle around the outside, it rotates freely in all directions. And if I hit R, it attaches, I'll select the object and hit R, it attaches the object to my cursor rotationally, and I can spin it around like a mad person. And finally, scale. So scale is this tiny little cube inside a larger cube, and if I click on that, I can scale on the axes, on any one axis. So red for X, Y, green for Y, and blue for Z. Or I can, if I hit S on my keyboard, that connects it to my cursor, and I can just drag my cursor left and right to scale it as I will. And once I left click, it disconnects it. And if you've done a bunch of crazy things to your cube and you just want to go back to your original cube size, you can actually find those numerical properties for scale, location, and rotation under object properties, which is this little orange box with a larger box around it. If I click on that, I've got location X, Y, and Z. I can actually select all of those, hit 0, and that sends it back to origin, so 0, 0, 0. Rotation to X, Y, and Z, I don't want it to be rotated at all, so I'm just going to left click, select all of those, and press 0, so it's no longer rotated. And my scale is all weird. What happens if I just set that to 0? Oh, nothing's there, because if you've got a 0 scale in X, Y, and Z, it's nothingness. Whereas if you have a scale of 1, that brings you back to your original cube size. So pro tip, if you want to make things appear and disappear on an AR graphic, you can just scale it in from 0 to whatever, and then back down to 0 again, and it will appear to be appearing and disappearing. Ta-da! Okay, so that's all, folks, for moving objects. So let's actually duplicate this and assign some colors. So if I want to duplicate it, it is Shift-D, and that connects it to my cursor right away, just like if I were hit G to grab and move around, and that sends it off to a crazy place. But let's say I want to stack it. If I actually want to have one cube on top of the other. There's probably the easiest way to do that. I mean, what I could do is I could zero out the location on this. So I could zero out the object properties for the new cube, and you can tell I'm using the new cube because it's cube.001 in the scene collection and not my original cube. So I can zero out those location properties, and then I could just say drag it up in space, and these cubes appear to be 2 meters tall. So if I just set the Z to 2 meters, it should be exactly flush on each other. The other way to do this is if I actually go into orthographic view. So orthographic means like flat. Right now I'm in perspective. I can see everything in perspective. But if I wanted to see it flat, so say just the front of it, there's like a little navigation gizmo in the upper right hand corner of your UI where it says Z, Y, and X. And you see that when I move my middle mouse, drag the mouse, you'll see that that updates with whatever direction I'm looking in. If I click on one of these little, in this case, negative Y, so the negative Y direction, if I click on that, it's actually going to flatten my image so that I'm just looking in that direction. And if I duplicate an object here, so I'll select that cube, go Shift D, I'm moving in just these axes. So, which means I can actually move that up to the top there and get it relatively lined up. And you see, I'm only a 0.0005 off of a perfect alignment. But I am so pedantic, I am going to change that to 4. And I'm also going to change that -0 to a 0. Because again, pedantic. And, you know, this is maths. I don't want negative zeros in there doing crazy things, freaking stuff out. All I had to do to get out of that orthographic view was a middle mouse drag, and I'm back into perspective again. Okay, so I'm going to make a little tower. I'm going to top this tower with a cone. To add a new object into the scene, I'm actually going to go Shift, so I'm just going to hover my mouse in space here and go Shift A, and that brings up a cool little add menu, which is really, really nifty. It reminds me a little bit of the context menu in Blueprint in Unreal. So go add, we'll go mesh and cone. And that's added that just to the ground space 0. And I've lost it because I clicked away, but that's okay, guys. I can find it again in my scene collection. So just up here on the right. So cone, I can just drag that up in Z space to the top of my tower. And once again, in object properties, so this little orange box, I'm just going to set that Z to 6, so it's nice and perfect. I have a tower. And I could make, let's actually assign some colors to this and then start duplicating things around. Okay, so to assign new colors, we are going to assign a new material to this. Now, assign a new material. It's like wrapping paper. I'm saying I want this to be wrapped in a shiny material, or I want this to be wrapped in a matte, flat material. I want this to be wrapped in a shiny red or a shiny green. So materials contain material types like shiny or not shiny, as well as, say, the colors. So, for example, if I click on this cube, and I go to material properties, which is, it looks like a little beach ball on the UI bar on the right, and it's the second to the bottom, material properties. There's already a material assigned to this, and that's material bland, material gray, default. I want to, if I just change this, something interesting that's going to happen. So if I select each of these cubes, you'll see each of these cubes have that same gray material. But the cone at the top does not. The cone has no material. I think that's really interesting that the cubes come in with a default gray material, but the cone comes in with no material, and yet it's still gray. Do-do-do-do-do. Anyways, so if I go to one of these cubes and I select on that material, now for me in the past, when I just changed the base color on the sort of default menu here, nothing happens, and I don't know why. See, it changes in the material menu, but not in my viewport. However, if I press use nodes and I change the base color there, you'll see it updates. I don't know why that is. This is a mystery to be solved as I learn Blender. If you know why that is, I would love to hear about it in the comments. So you'll see all three of my cubes have turned red. And that's because they all had the same default material. But the cone did not. That's because it did not have any material associated with it. It's okay. What we're going to do is make sure that there's a different material for each of these cubes. We're just going to clear that material. So on the object, in that material properties menu, there's a little X. So unlink data block. In this case, the material is a data block. So press X. Boom! Free of any materials. And I'm back to a blank slate. Okay, cool. Let's create a new one. On this bottom cube, I'm going to, again, in the material properties, go to new. And I'm going to switch it to new use nodes right away, so it will actually work. And I just don't know why that doesn't work. So the other version doesn't work. So again, something to figure out in the future. Base color. Let's make that cyan-ish. Let's make that a little bit of cyan. And it's a material 01. I'm going to double click on that and just go cyan. And the second cube, press new and new use nodes, and under base color, how about a little bit of fuchsia? It's a bit fuchsia-ish. Fuchsia. And finally, new use nodes, and let's go mustard. I hate mustard. It is such a foul color. Mustard. It's just so ugly. And for the cone, let's go new. And we'll go use nodes again. I guess I'm turning off use nodes, I suppose. So it looks like I'm turning off PBR. No, it's still PBR. So metallic specular roughness. Oh, I'm so going to explore that later. And I think that's roughly a burnt umber. Okay, cool. I've got a little tower. Now, I actually want to duplicate some of these pieces and make myself a tiny little castle. So in previous videos, which failed miserably, I experimented around a little bit, and I decided that the best way to duplicate this is actually going to be, so say I want I want a short wall to be about 2 tiles high. So I'm going to grab these 2 tiles on the bottom, switch to top mode, and then I'm going to duplicate it. And if I hold down Control, that actually lets me discretely step. So if I hold down Control, that actually lets me snap to grid. 1, now in perspective view, but not in this view for some reason. Oh no, it's still snapping. It just, there it is. My grid size has just gotten very small, that's all. Okay, so if I hold down Control while I move things, it actually snaps them, which is cool. So I'm going to shift again. And let's shift duplicate so it's actually just lined up perfectly. Hold down Control. And we'll do one more time. Cool. And then I'm going to go back to perspective mode. Lol. I totally did not actually duplicate those. I just moved them. Boom. And I just use Control again to snap that back into place. Okay, so I now have a wall with a tower. I want to, rather than, do that each of those one piece by piece, I actually just want to duplicate this whole piece around. And I think the easiest way to do that is going to be parenting it. It looks like I've duplicated the lights at some point. Let's actually just delete those excess lights right now because we don't need duplicate lights. Okay, so I'm going to just parent this wall together. So parent basically means, so parent has a child. So if I say parent this cube to this block, if I select the cone, which is, so you select the child first and the parent, it says, hey, wherever this cube goes, I want that child to follow. So if I go select cone, select cube, Control P, set parent to, and that opens up this little menu, and I go object. So now in my scene collection, you'll see if I do the drop down next to cube 2, the cone is actually underneath of the cube. So if I move that cube, boom, the cone goes with it, but I can still move the cone. And if I move the cube again, it will keep those relative transformations. Hey, parenting 101. I actually want to parent everything to just one corner cube. So I'm going to, and there's probably an easier way to do this, but I'm just going to select the whole lot. Shift select shift select to deselect my main cube, and then shift select again so that the most recent thing selected is the cube I want to be the parent. Control P, set parent to, so Control P to open up the menu, select object, and in my little scene collection, it's just become very clean. You'll see that everything is now underneath cube 7. So if I just open up that drop down, boom, everything belongs to cube 7, which means if I select cube 7, and I go Shift D to duplicate. That didn't duplicate everything. What if I select the whole hierarchy? Now I'm going to have to select the entire hierarchy, everything, and then go Shift D. Ha! There we go. That created my cube. And it did send it off into a strange place. But that did grab my entire hierarchy. Okay, cool. We're going to do that one again. But this time I'm actually going to do it from top down because it's just going to be easier to move things around that way. So I'm going to expand cube 7 and select hierarchy. So if I right click on cube 7, I go select hierarchy. That selects everything. I go Shift D and hold down Control. That lets me snap. Let's actually rotate this first. Let's rotate this bad boy. Cool. And I just rotated. If you hold down Control while rotating it, it will snap that as well. And it's holding down Control again to make sure everything snaps into place. I'm going to grab that whole lot again, or probably to be more clean, I will select cube 07 in the scene collection and go select hierarchy. Shift D again to duplicate, and hold down Control to snap. What am I doing? What am I doing? just rotate that. Cool. Hold down Control to snap my rotations. And finally, once again, select hierarchy. And Shift D to duplicate. Hold down Control to snap things. Let's actually just rotate that now. Come on, I'm making the sound effects. You're supposed to be going chicka chicka chicka. There we go. Hold down Control to snap to the grid. Cool! And if I move in perspective view, you shall now see I have a little castle with ugly mustard bricks. And because I've named these guys, if I want to come in here and change any of these materials to say, make this checkered rather than having two cubes of the same color touching each other. If I select the cube and I go back to material properties, where you've got, so it says fuchsia selected, but there's this little another beach ball within the beach ball. If I click on that drop down, I can select any of the materials I've already created, and because I named them, they're quite easy to find. Naming things becomes hugely important when you've got a large scene. Like when you're just learning and no one else is touching your work, doesn't really matter. But if you're actually working on a larger project and any other human being is meant to work with your stuff, name your stuff so that they don't open it up and see box 01 is broken and they can't tell what the frack box 01 is supposed to be. Cool. So there you have it, folks. We have moved stuff. We've duplicated things. We've changed some colors. And yeah, we've got ourselves a tacky little tower. All right, folks, thank you very much. This was a, Blender Bytes basic sort of tutorial. See ya.